Mr. Schiavello, thank you for coming on the Combat and Conversation
Nikita,
podcast.
it is my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Now, let's start from the beginning. You are the child of an immigrant parent, I believe, from Italy.
Correct.
He was a factory worker, I believe.
Correct.
How would you summarize your sort of early childhood with your family, in the family context?
Great family, grew up in a traditional Italian family. Dad was from Italy, mum's from an Italian family, but born here in Melbourne.
Okay, yeah.
Dad was a shoemaker, worked very hard in a factory in Preston. That he later went on to become a business owner and own his own factory in Preston, making shoes, high quality shoes.
Yeah.
I used to supply Country Road and a lot of big high fashion houses with very high quality women's shoes. Dad was always working hard. Would leave home at 6:30 in the morning, get home at 7:30 at night. His hands were always black, and he worked hard for the kids. And Mum took care of myself and my three sisters. And we never wanted for anything. It was a very loving family. Parents spoke English at home, which at the time was very convenient, of course. Well. Yeah. But now that I'm older, I wish they would have spoken Italian at home, so I knew it as a second language. I could talk bits and pieces, but a very loving, caring home.
Oh, fantastic. And I from my research, I can see that obviously you had a bit of an issue growing up in terms of bullying around the schoolyard. Maybe talk to me a little bit about that.
I was the bigger kid, The thing was, Nikita, that I didn't realize it for a long time. And I still, looking back at old photos when I was in grade 3 or 4, I'm like, I don't think I was a big kid. I thought I was pretty average. Yeah. But, I remember in particular one kid turning around in grade 3, I think it was, in the schoolyard and calling me a beach ball out of nowhere. And I was so shocked. I'm like, a beach ball? I don't think I'm that big.
Yeah.
But even now, that's stuck in my mind. You remind me of that. I can picture where in the playground, I can picture that kid's face. Unfortunately, he passed away 20 years ago. Okay, yeah. But I remember his name, I remember his face, I remember the incident, and that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I think, as I've said before, from that time on, I started sucking in my stomach, thinking I had to try and hide it. And I didn't let my stomach out for 30 years, man. So those things affect you. And I was always the bigger kid growing up. And I think that me being a bigger kid and being called the fat wog, it pushed me further in my career, because it meant that I tried to overcome those bully tags by becoming someone that they couldn't bully anymore.
Yep.
Someone that look at and go, oh, geez, this guy's interviewing celebrities, he's on radio, he's on TV, he's an international commentator. Like, there's nothing you can't pick on him anymore.
Exactly.
And when I had high school reunions later on in life, in my 20s, and we were getting together, and then some of the bullies from high school were like saying that to me. Oh, we saw you commentate the Olympic Games. We saw you on the Commonwealth Games. Hey, can you get me tickets to this fight? Can you get me tickets to that fight? And I would think to myself, you're an asshole.
Exactly.
Back in high school. But now, at least you're thinking of me like that now, and not thinking, oh, there's Schiavello, the fat wog from high school. So it's one of those things that, even though at times in your life you think it's a bad thing, if you can turn it around and flip it 180 and use it as a superpower, it helps you achieve.
And do you think you consciously made the choice, even at that age, to sort of use a lot of that negative energy as fuel in your life, would you say?
I don't think early. I think later on, when I started to get into media, I think that was the real turning point. And I realized that I had a superpower, and my superpower was my voice, and my ability to communicate, and my written ability as well. So I think being able to use these powers to then transcend those bullies,
of course,
and transcend that genre almost, is what really helped me.
And I know you've spoken about sort of finding that your voice, the voice in year 11, I believe, during your joining up to the debate team.
Yeah,
the ability to debate things.
Actually started in year 10. So, when you're in year 10, you do work experience in high school. And when I was growing up, Nikita, all I wanted to do was be an architect, actually. I used to love drawing. I loved drawing houses. I had my mind set on being an architect. So it comes April of 1990, year 10, and I'm writing away to 20 different architecture firms asking for a week's work experience. And none of them wrote back to me, not one. And I was so upset. And again, I remember this clearly. I'm standing by the letterbox in the driveway. I'm getting another rejection letter from another architecture place. And they all just said no, or they just didn't write back to me at all. And I'm crying to my mum, going, Mum, what am I going to do? And there's something about mothers, and they instinctively know what's best for their child. And I don't know where my mum pulled this out of, but she looked at me and she said, you've got a good voice. Why don't you do radio?
Yeah.
I'm like, good voice, radio. I want to be an architect.
It's prophetic.
Yeah. Right? And she goes, just trust me, do radio. And I remember saying, but whatever you do, don't become a journalist because they send them to wars and you'll end up in a war zone. She goes, do radio. I go, how do I even get a start in that? She goes, oh, write to 3RW. I listen to 3AW. I'm like, oh no, all right. If I'm going to write to a station, I'll write to a station I listen to. I'll write to Triple M.
Yes.
I wrote to Triple M and Nikita. They wrote a letter back to me and it arrived dated. I still have the letter at home because it changed my whole life's trajectory. It's dated April 10, 1990, my birthday.
Oh, wow.
I still have the letter from a woman named Deanne Sloan accepting me for a week's work experience at Triple M. So here I rock up to Triple M, the old Burke Street studios in the city, and Deanne Sloan greets me and she looks me up and down. She's like, what do you want to do in radio? And I'm thinking, I don't. I want to be an architect. I'm here because my mum forced me to come here. And she goes, I've got a good feeling about you. I'm going to stick you in the newsroom with our journalists. Okay. So I go in this little newsroom, there's these microphones jutting out of the wall and there's consoles and monitors and there's fax machines spitting out this news feed from Reuters and all this other stuff. And there's this guy running around doing sport called Eddie Maguire. And there's another bloke there called Steve Speziali. And I'm looking into the studio and there's the D generation, you know, Mick Molloy, Tony Martin, Jane Kennedy, Rob Sitch, Santo Chilero, Tom Gleisner, who I listen to every morning. And I had a crush on Jane Kennedy. I think we all did back in those days. You know, and then Richard Stubbs came on the air and I'm like, this is unbelievable. This is awesome.
Surrounded by greatness.
Buzz of this, right? And Nikita, at that moment, every thought I had of being an architect went, and all I wanted to do was broadcast media. So it's just, that's how it started, 1990, and from then it was off and running.
Off and running. And you started, I believe, at 16 at Southern FM. Wasn't that your first?
That's right. So I finished up a Triple M work experience, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more radio. So I'm looking around thinking, try and get my foot in the door of community radio. Southern FM had a sports show every Sunday. I wrote to them and said, hey, I'd love to be involved. And they're like, sure, let's get you reporting on some amateur football games for the VAFA. Let's get you, can you do anything else? I mean, I can do a fishing report. I can do soccer reports. I started just doing round the grounds reporting. And then my mum would drive me in every Sunday to the studios in Moorabbin around here, you know, and she'd drop me off for 3 hours and I'd be helping them produce and I'd be in studio hosting and this and that. And I was doing that for 2 or 3 years. And it was just an amazing experience, just immersing yourself in community radio as a springboard. And even back then, I just wanted to differentiate from what people thought someone of my age should only be capable of.
Right.
So I thought, I'm going to try and go out there and get big sports stars on this little unknown community radio station sports show on a Sunday morning that maybe 20 people were listening to. I didn't care. So I'd go out there and get tennis players. Tennis players had come to town. I'd interview Goran Ivanisevic and Stefan Edberg and Gabriella Sabatini. Cricketers had come to town. I'd get Wazzy Makram and Richie Richardson and Joel Garner and these big known cricketers. You know, Fight Sports would come to town. And I'd ring Dennis Alexio in his hotel when your dad brought him out to Melbourne. I'm sure you're going to talk about that. And, you know, he did an interview with me and that changed my whole career. So I became known for that. I was a 16, 17-year-old kid who was getting interviews with sports stars on community radio, but not saying it was community radio. I was pretending I was from 3RW.
It's quite, I mean, it's quite remarkable.
I was faking it.
And you were calling up, I believe, hotels for Pele's hotel room 100%. And Maradona's hotel.
I was dropping my voice down as deep as I could go. I was pretending I was from a commercial radio station.
Oh, wow.
I was pretending that they had to put me through in a hurry because I was on a deadline and, you know, we had to go to air in a couple of minutes or I had to come down there and meet the person to record. And I was just BSing my way through it all.
Going
you know,
for it,
they'd say fake it till you make it.
And
And the thing was, perception is reality. So if you act older and you sound older, and like yourself, you're a young man with, and you guys can't see this, but the setup that Nikita has for this podcast is incredible. 3 cameras, lighting, producers, directors, everyone around here. So the perception is that even though you are 26 and you're still wet behind the ears as far as this sort of environment goes, I step in here and like, this is professional. This comes from a guy who's worked in TV for 30 years.
Oh, fantastic.
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
I was
the
trying
perception.
it's the perception. I was trying to do the same, even though I was 16, 17 on community radio.
Yeah.
I never introduced myself as a 16, 17-year-old
Yeah.
on community radio.
And it takes a remarkable amount of sort of confidence at that age specifically to sort of say, well, or to have the understanding that you do have to sort of push yourself out there and pretend that you're older than what you are in order to get what you want.
There's two things. Confidence is a huge one. And I always say that. When I'm training or doing a seminar for someone who wants to get into commentary or get into media, I'm like, confidence is your number one thing. If you're not confident, you won't make it.
Yeah.
But the second one is ignorance.
Yeah.
And ignorance is an amazing thing, because if you are ignorant, you're not boxed in by what society or the traditional media expects.
Sure.
Okay, traditional media expects you to do this, to stay in this box. But if you are ignorant of those boundaries, you don't accept them.
Yeah.
You're like, why should I stay in this box? I'm ignorant of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you weren't meant to go to hotels and petition people in the lobby of hotels, big sports stars, to get interviews.
Yes.
I didn't know there were certain embargoes on certain athletes. You weren't meant to, trespass over those embargoes and go and grab people for interviews. I remember going to the Hilton Hotel, 17 years old, and interviewing Muhammad Azharuddin, who at the time was the captain of the Indian cricket team.
Right.
And at the time, he was in the headlines, and I forget what it was for, but all the headlines were about him. I grabbed him as he was going out to practice, and I said, Muhammad, can I do an interview with you? It'll take 15 minutes. I'm ready to go. And he looked around as if like, how the hell did this guy even get in here?
Yeah.
And he said, yes. We sat down, did a 15-minute interview. And then he left. He said goodbye. And I went out. I went to the MCG, watched them train. And I was talking to, and I remember the guy's name from Channel 7. I won't mention it because I don't want to embarrass him. And I said, I just interviewed Muhammad Azharuddin. He's like, how? We're all banned from interviewing. There's a total ban on the Indian team.
Yeah.
I go, he was lovely. I just interviewed him in his hotel. I was 17 years old.
Right.
It was ignorance.
Yes,
you know?
yes. Yeah.
He wasn't ignorant because he was trained in like, I can't overstep those boundaries. For me though, I didn't know any boundaries.
You didn't have those boundaries. Exactly. And that's freeing in a great way, and it allows you to have those opportunities.
It does. And I say to young people these days, don't be boxed in.
Yep.
Think outside the box. If you really want someone to interview,
Yes.
go for it.
Exactly.
And figure out ways. You don't always have to go through their manager. You don't always have to go through the official channels. There are ways to get to people. But also when you're finagling those ways, be polite
Of course.
about it.
Yeah.
Because you can always attract more flies with honey than with vinegar.
That's right.
And I've found that. My parents always taught me, be polite.
Yeah.
No matter what, be polite. Even if you can't do something, be polite. Of
course.
Don't burn any bridges.
That's
and it gets you a long way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I think it's an important attitude to have, and as you're a testament to this, it gets you such a long way in life and your career. Let's jump to 1992. We were talking about this earlier. So, this is Dennis Alexio versus Stan the Man Longinides. You were at that fight. Take me through that experience for you and meeting Dennis and going through that experience.
So, a backstory to that, it also starts with Southern FM doing the sports show, because amongst the guests that I wanted to interview was, I think 6 months before, was Stan the Man.
Okay.
I picked up a copy of Blitz magazine that I'd never read in my life. And I read a story on Stan. I thought, it'd be cool to interview this guy. I knew nothing about kickboxing, but he was this world champion in Melbourne. I remember calling the magazine. Now, the editor of the magazine back then was a guy called Silvio Morelli, and his number was listed in the magazine credits, his mobile number. And I thought, I'll ring this guy and see if he can give me a contact for Stan the Man. I remember ringing Silvio, and it turned out he was at lunch with Stan when I rang.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
He goes, I'll put you on the phone to Stan right now. And I'm like, Mr. Longinides, my name is Michael Schiavello. I do Southern FM. Could I interview you on the show? Yeah, he said. So we did a phone interview, Stan and I, on Southern FM. And then months later, of course, your father brought Dennis Alexio to fight Stan in the greatest kickboxing heavyweight fight of all time, or was meant to be, the biggest one anyway. And I thought, Dennis Alexio's in town. I'd seen him in the movie Kickboxer.
Yes.
I've got to interview this guy.
Yeah.
And again, I rang the Ridges Hotel in Melbourne where he was staying, dropped my voice down, said I was working for a big radio station. Can I come in and interview you? And he's like, okay, no worries, come and interview me. So I rock up there to the Ridges. I go up to his room and do the interview. And the interview's outstanding. Dennis was just an amazing personality. It goes for half an hour, 40 minutes. It's gold. Everything's gold. I can still play that interview in my head. It was so memorable.
Fantastic.
Afterwards, I'm about to go downstairs. I'm waiting by the elevator. I think my mum was about to pick me up in half an hour or so. And Dennis comes out of his room and he looks me up and down and he goes, how old are you anyway? And I'm like, shoot. The one thing I never want anyone to ask me. But I thought, do I lie to this guy? He's just so nice. I was telling the truth. I go, I'm 17. And he goes, man, you've got a big future ahead of you. He goes, what are you doing now? Going home, going to catch a bus, tram, whatever it is. My mum picking me up. And he goes, do you want to have lunch together? And I'm like, the heavyweight champion of the world is asking me to lunch? Are you kidding? I'm like, yeah, okay. Went downstairs to lunch, had a burger, sat there and chatted with him for an hour and a half. Man, I was in ecstasy. It was utopia. I'm like, 17-year-old kid talking to the heavyweight champion of the world who'd been in one of the highest grossing action films in the world, a year or so before. I was over the moon. Went to the fight that night. I got accredited. I contacted your dad and said I was working for Italian newspaper in Melbourne, which I was, Il Globo newspaper, doing the English sports reports. Can I get an accreditation? Gave me an accreditation. Rocked up. It was my first ever fight event. I'd never been to a boxing match, a karate match, nothing. First time I'd ever seen fights. I was 2 rows in. I was sitting behind Nick Giannopoulos, I remember. Sitting behind Nick Giannopoulos amongst the many luminaries your dad had there. Man, there were 5 fights on that night. I remember every fight clearly, every moment. I was just besotted. I was like, this is freaking amazing. Stan Alexo didn't last long. It lasted 14 seconds. Dennis had broken his leg. I went backstage afterwards, managed to word my way backstage, seeing Dennis on the stretcher. Jeff Fennick was in the change room. I was like, oh, shit, I'm standing next to Jeff Fennick. I stepped on bloody Steve Vick. Steve Vick was on a stretcher on the floor after his war against Hector Pena. And I'm like, stepped on him. He's like, ouch. I'm like, I'm sorry. Dennis is laid on a bench.
17-year-old kid.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
And they were about to take Dennis to the ambulance. And even Dennis, because he could see that I was visibly upset that he'd lost. He goes, Michael, don't worry. He goes, don't worry about me. He goes, I'll call you. He went to the hospital and I wrote him this piece that I'd done. And 2 days later, he rang me at home because I'd written my number on this piece that I'd written about him. And he goes, Michael, what you wrote about me was so amazing. And he goes, I'm heading back to Hawaii. He goes, but I've got to tell you, here's my phone number. He said, anytime you come to Hawaii, mi casa, su casa. First time I'd ever heard anyone say that. I didn't even know what it meant at the time. And there wasn't an Easter or a Christmas, Nikita, that went by for years after that Dennis didn't ring the home. Didn't ring me. My mum would answer the phone. He'd talk to my mum. He'd get on the phone to me. How you going? How you doing? How's your career? We stayed in touch for a long time. And then I remember next time I got to see him, which was the last time I saw him, was 2007 when K1 did a show in Honolulu. And I was there with Ray Sefo and Jan Norte, 2 K1 stars. And I tracked down Dennis and I said, I'm in Honolulu. He goes, let's meet up at Duke's restaurant, very famous in Waikiki there. And I said to Ray and Jan, do you want to come and meet Alexia? And they're like, oh man, we'd love to. And the thing was, Nikita, and it's a little sad, it makes me a little emotional, is that I went to Duke's. And you got to understand, when I met Dennis when I was 17, when he came in 92, he was a god. He was an Adonis. He was ripped. He was buff.
He was a movie star as well.
He was a movie star. He had the swagger. To me, he was larger than life. In 2007, I realized that he's actually my height. Right, he's like, Dennis is only like 5'10", 5'11". He's not 6'3" or 4" that you think he is. He was no longer buffed and ripped. He wasn't a heavyweight. He looked like a middleweight. His head was shaved. He was still a beautiful human being, but it was like, it's just amazing how after 15 years it changes. And what your child's mind envisions one thing, 15 years later you see the reality. And unfortunately, that was the last time I got him tickets to the K1 show, and he loved it. That was the last time I saw him. He's in prison at the moment. When I wrote my book a few years ago, because there's a whole chapter on him and the influence he had on me, I tried to get a copy to him, and he's in Bellevue prison in Texas, and I couldn't even get to him. So unfortunately, I hope he's safe and well, and I miss him, but he's a man that turned my career around.
And do you think that at that time, did you ever think that it would be the last time you would potentially see him? Or
No, I didn't, because we were still going to Hawaii every year for K1. And I thought, I'll see him again next year. I think I said that. I'll see you again next year, get your tickets again, we'll hook up. And unfortunately, I've never seen him again. I like to think that he thinks about me sometimes, and I'm pretty sure he does. I don't know if and when he'll ever get out of prison. I hope he does. And I hope it sometime he'll look on the internet and track you down. It's pretty easy to do, and we can reconnect, but
that would be ideal. Yeah, absolutely. Now, in regard to that fight in particular with Stan, I'm curious to get your opinion on this, because there was a lot of controversy surrounding that fight. people were accusing my dad and other people of rigging the fight and
Yeah,
saying there was a hole in the ring. What did you think at that moment, being in it?
Yeah, so at that moment,
Yes.
I thought Dennis twisted his ankle, fell on top of his own, 17-year-old's mind.
Yes.
Twisted his ankle, fell on top of his own leg and broke his own leg.
Right.
Then we see the famous photo that was on the cover of Blitz magazine that one of the photographers took that shows the actual leg kick and Dennis's leg check. So it shows Stan with the leg kick.
Right.
So there were 3 main theories that came out because I've been asked this on many podcasts over the years.
Right.
And 3 theories, and I won't say which one is the true one because I don't know. I think we don't know. The first one is that Stan's kick was so powerful that Dennis's shin broke.
Yes.
Because Dennis wasn't used to leg kicks, didn't know how to properly execute a check. And therefore Stan just shattered the leg.
Right.
Okay. Second one is that there was something wrong with the canvas because then they put this footage out, which you would have seen. Bob Wall, who was Dennis's manager, who you may remember from Enter the Dragon. He played O'Hara, who fought Bruce Lee, the bad guy. I knew Bob Wall, but Bob was a wily character. And they put footage out later that showed Dennis warming up in the ring apparently the day before and saying, oh, there's a soft spot in the canvas here. Now, I don't know if I necessarily buy that because you can doctor that sort of stuff.
Right.
And from that footage, if you see it, and I think it's still online, you can't tell that they're inside the old glass house, the old entertainment center, right? Because it's very dark.
Yeah.
The third one, it's a more controversial one, and it is not my opinion. I'm just saying, because I don't want any legal suits or anything, but I'm just saying it's a theory floated out there. As I said earlier, Dennis was an Adonis. He was sculpted. He was buffed. He was chiseled. Was he possibly on some sort of performance-enhancing drugs? Was he possibly on steroids?
Right.
When you're doing that sort of stuff, Nikita, it can often make the bones brittle.
Yep.
So were his bones a little brittle from juicing?
Yeah.
Combine that with the power of Stan's leg kicks,
Right.
and maybe that's why his shin shattered.
Okay.
So there were 3 theories surrounding that one. I like to think, as we all do, that it was simply Stan's kick against a pull check that resulted in a 14-second KO.
Yes.
I guess we'll never know because a rematch never happened.
Exactly. And I think everyone just has, people who are there have a different opinion. Everyone has a different opinion, but we won't actually know the true story. Maybe it's one of those myths.
It's one of those myths. It's going to be going to fable and folklore of kickboxing for eternity.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So soon after that, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in 1997 you were offered a Foxtel deal. Is that correct at the time? And
so
to take off there?
How it got to there was Alexio, Stan, 92, 93, I started studying journalism at Deakin, hated it, absolutely hated it. Again, they tried, the truth boxed you in.
Yes, right.
You know, didn't let you play colour outside the lines.
Right.
And again, Blitz magazine, I saw in the credits that one of my mates from Southern FM was doing some writing for them. David Beard was his name. I rang him and said, hey, can I contribute to this magazine? And he said, sure, let me speak to them. Got a call from Silvio Morelli and he said, yeah, why don't you come in a couple of days a week and do some writing for us? A couple of days a week led to a full-time job editing the magazines that they had at the time, which were all martial arts magazines. And then at the same time on radio, on the old 3AK radio, I was doing soccer commentary every weekend, doing the Victorian Premier League. And a promoter called Paul Demicoli, who did Ultimate Promotions back in the day, heard me commentate soccer on radio. And he rang me one day at Blitz. And it was 1994. So I would have been just 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. He rang me and said, I want you to commentate my kickboxing show out in Sunshine. And I'm like, Paul, I know nothing about commentating kickboxing. I want to do soccer commentary. And he kept ringing and rigging and begging, you know, like in Ferris Bueller. He kept calling and calling and calling. That's what he did.
Yeah.
So eventually I said, all right, I'll do it. So I head out to the Sunshine Macedonian Youth Police Function Centre.
Right.
And he puts me with a guy called Tony Shebeki, who was a great commentator, who later went on to become the voice of Australian Gladiators and do SEN radio. And I remember the main event that night was a bloke called Pat Christophe, the Phantom. And I'm there commentating and wow, I had a talent for it.
Yeah.
I just let it all go.
Yes.
You know, Tarek Solak heard this video. He rings me, buddy, I heard you fight commentary, buddy. Can you commentate my show at Dallas Brooks Hall, buddy? All right. He put me with Stan to commentate.
Right.
It was Gurkhan versus, it might have been Gurkhan Briggs or Gurkhan versus Katson Crit, the Thai that he knocked out, one of those ones at Dallas Brooks Hall. And Tarek's like, buddy, I want you to commentate all my shows from now on. All right. And then in 96, I think it was, don't quote me on this, Nikita, but I think 96, Foxtel came to Australia, pay TV came to Australia. I believe it was Premier Sports back then. It wasn't called Foxtel or Fox Sports. And they started to do some bits of kickboxing and karate and stuff. And Dave Hedgecock was the contact that they used through that. And Uncle Dave gave me a call. And by that time, I'd started doing some commentary. I brought Hammer on because Mark had said to me after the first show, he goes, hey, can I do some commentary with you as well? And I said, okay, why not?
Absolutely.
And then Uncle Dave approached us and said, hey, do you guys want to do it for this new TV, pay TV? And we started doing it. One microphone between us, run on a cable.
Fantastic.
No headphones.
You and Mark, the duo.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
right?
Yeah.
We started doing that and it was off and running from there, man. We became the voice of Fox Sports fights every week for years after that.
And surely at that point in your life, you were thinking, how the hell have I gone from doing Southern FM at 16 within like 5-6 years? You're taking over.
No, I didn't.
You did,
No, I didn't. Because for me, it was like, no, this is where I should be. I should be doing more.
Right.
In me, it was like, no, how did I get here?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I know why I'm here.
Yeah.
Because I fought tooth and nail and I scratched to get here.
Yeah.
To overcome any of those biases of he's just a young wog, you know, a young overweight wog. Like I fought to get beyond that. And you got to remember, I had no background in kickboxing. I'm not a kickboxer.
Right, yeah.
I'm not a fighter. Dude, if you flick me right now, I'll scream and run away. right? I'm not that type of guy.
Okay, yeah.
So to be involved in that industry and with a guy like Tarek Solak, you know, I love Tarek, God rest his soul, but he was very intimidating and imposing. You know, and there was no BS, and he looked after you. He paid well. They only get paid at the start, but you know, eventually he paid well, and he looked after everyone. He looked after me very well. Yeah. But it was intimidating to be around him and around fighters and who were volatile. And if you said the wrong thing, maybe they could go off on you. So it wasn't. I fought my way to establish my reputation as someone that fighters would turn around and go, even though this young guy isn't one of us, isn't a fighter,
That's right, yeah.
he's doing a good job of putting us over and commentating this stuff.
Exactly, because I can imagine that being around those types of figures, you have to, there's a part of you that wants to, I guess not compensate's not the right word, but you feel like, you know, these guys are killers. These people are actual killers and they're not going to respect me. You know, I'm someone doing 100%. It, a commentator or journalist. But to have that level of confidence and to be able to bring your A game every night, that obviously gets the attention
and
of
that's what it comes down to again. You've hit it again, confidence.
Yeah.
It's ignorance.
Yeah.
All right. It's ignorance of like, I don't know what to do. I'm teaching myself how to commentate. I didn't go to school for this.
Yeah.
I'm watching videos. I'm being inspired by my hero, Gorilla Monsoon, the old WWF commentator. I'm listening to him going, how does he do it?
Yeah.
What makes me love him as a commentator? Maybe I can put some of that in my commentary. I'm listening to old videos from your dad's old shows that we used to have in the office of Blitz when Maurice Smith fought Stan and Bob Jones was commentating because I didn't know all the techniques. Right. So I'd sit there in front of my TV and go, roundhouse kick, front kick, hook, jab, 3-2 combination. And I'd rewind, turn down Bob Jones and Rob Gaylord and Richard Norton, God rest his soul, back then, and I'd commentate that over myself. Yeah. Then I'd rewind it, turn it on, go, did I hit it correctly? Did I do it correctly?
And see, oh wow.
And I start teaching myself.
Yeah.
So it was difficult, like you said, because I was surrounded by fighters that were intimidating, knowing that if I said something wrong, they might put me in a corner and rough me up.
Right.
You know, not so you realize that most of these guys are nice guys. You know, the nicest being right over there, Special K Nick Carrot and shoot out of Nick. Always loved that guy. But you know, you don't know back then.
Yeah.
But then also I wanted to have a style. I didn't want to be so intimidated that I didn't have a style.
Of course.
So I just went all out. It was bombastic. It was over the top. It was sell these guys, put them over. And they loved it.
Well, and that's part of one of my questions that I have for you, just in preparation for this, because I'm so interested in the craft of commentating. Was your style, your particular style, the catchphrases, you know, the big kibosh, good night Irene, were these things, I guess, was it a system that you developed consciously, or did it sort of develop organically, or what was that process like?
It was almost organic. You know, my first commentary was track and field in high school. I did it just to wag a day of high school, wag an afternoon in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm commentating at Olympic Park, the APS Athletics Championships 1991, and the guys I was commentating with, other students, they're like, oh, just give Schiavello the friggin' 1500 meter race no one cares about. We'll go get a hot dog, right? Yes. I'm sitting there commentating it and I rip out Good Night Irene right at the end of the race. Yeah. And when Tarek asked me to commentate his show, it just felt natural to say that when Gurkhan, whoever it was, knocked someone out. I screamed, good night, Irene. Yeah. And I remember Tarek afterwards asking me, buddy, I love your commentary. Your commentary is unbelievable, buddy, but who the fuck is Irene? He kept saying Irene. Right? The weirdest story is, Nikita, they always say the universe brings you what you manifest, what you ask for.
Yeah.
Years later, when I'm 34 years old, I end up meeting a girl named Irene who I marry.
Oh,
wow. Of all the names of all the girls in the world,
Irene.
I've been screaming Irene, good night Irene since I was 16. I ended up marrying a woman named Irene.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so
fantastic.
It was all
synchronicity.
Synchronicity, right?
Yeah,
it's all just what feels good. And even these days when I commentate, it's not like I study other commentators now and go, oh, I need this. It's like, no, feel it. You got to feel it.
Yes,
you can't study things like this.
Yeah.
When you're doing a show like this, when you're interviewing a guest like this, and I had my own show like this in the US on Access TV, you've got to feel your guest. You know, when you do commentary, you've got to feel the fight. You've got to feel and be immersed in the moment. And it's that emotion, that feeling that makes a good commentator. You know, if a commentator comes with too many stats and facts, they get bogged down by that.
Absolutely.
They're missing that because they're focused on this.
Well, and this leads me to another question, because growing up, I loved the WWE. I was obsessed with professional wrestling, and a lot of people could say that, you know, there's a sense in your commentary, the colorful commentary that you bring, that, you know, it's very, very similar to the types of commentation that you'll find in, you know, the WWE. So I guess my question is, how important do you think storytelling is in all of this, even with K1, even with
most.
So it's because I've noticed as well, just watching commentators or listening to them, when they do get bogged down into facts, they lose you. But as soon as you start crafting a story and a narrative to suck people in, that's when you're invested in what's happening.
The most. I made my career commentating in Japan.
Yes.
I've been commentating in Japan since 2001.
Right.
The year Mark Hunt won the Grand Prix. I've been going there ever since. Japan taught me to storytell, because it's all about storytelling. Even when I was at Tokyo Dome 2 weeks ago doing Ryzen, 50,000 people there, Ryzen boss sits me down and he goes, I know you know this, but I've got to say it again. We don't care if the guy loses. We don't care if he loses 10 times in a row, as long as we can tell a good story. He goes, the reason we're going to get 50,000 people here today on a national holiday in the middle of the heat is because they're invested in stories.
Yes.
They're not invested in figures. They're not invested in protecting a 50-0 record. They're invested in a story. We need those stories to come across on the English commentary, because that's how we pull people into our brand.
Absolutely.
So storytelling, and I tell that again to all young commentators, tell a story. There's always a story to tell. And even back in the day, back in the 90s, I would always tell a story. Take Gurkhan Ozkan, for example. At a time when Stan was retiring, Sam Greco was retiring, when Melbourne kickboxing was, who's going to be the next big thing? Because Queensland was building up their scene with Muay Thai. Melbourne had always been the hot spot. Who would be the next big thing we could embrace with the magazine, on Fox Sports? Gurkhan Ozkan. A one-dimensional fighter, really.
Right.
Gurkhan had big set of fists and that was it, right? The personality was there, but it hadn't come out. So I was meeting with Gurkhan and talking to him and saying, bro, I want to call you the Supreme Fighting Machine. But if I call you that on Fox Sports, it comes with you having to back that up. You've got to go for the wild knockouts. You've got to have personality. You've got to start smack talking, calling people out. I've got to play you as the villain, as the heel.
Right.
You know, you can be the hero amongst the Turks, but no one else is going to see you as a hero.
Exactly.
And he embraced that. So when you see the old videos of him with Mike Zambides at their press conference, they throw water.
Crazy.
I was hosting the press conference. When you see his press conference with Stan and they're getting into it, I was hosting that press conference, because it was all about storytelling and building characters. And that's what made those Fox Sports broadcasts so successful for years. No one was tuning in because, you know, oh, this Gurkhan guy's got a record of, 20-4 with 10 knockouts. No, it's because this Gurkhan guy smack talks everyone. And he's been steamrolling through people. And this crazy commentator calls him the Supreme Fighting Machine. Right? So it's the storylines. And even now with Japan, and even when I did the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games or any promotion I've done over the years, Dream or Sengoku or whatever it might be, one championship, whatever, it's always the storylines, which is the main thing.
And it's funny that you say that, because people do say now that with the UFC in particular, that, since the era of Conor McGregor, the ultimate storyteller, especially at his inception when he first started fighting, in the UFC at least, it's run amok. Like everyone's got a character, everyone's got a personality. But it really started in your heyday. It was in that era where people were starting to find themselves that they weren't just a person fighting or a fighter; they were a character. You know.
Give a classic example: Stan and Tosca Petrides,
Yep.
right? Two fighters who I adore. They're amazing.
Yes.
And you can make an argument that Tosca was always the better fighter than Stan.
You can, yeah.
Sorry, Stan, but a lot of people can make that argument.
Yes.
Tosca beat him as an amateur,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What Stan had that made Stan more successful professionally than Tosca, I'm talking money-wise,
Trojan.
box office-wise, was personality, was story.
Yeah.
Stan would go to Japan, do the splits, have the koala suit behind him, throw koalas out to the audience.
Yeah.
On the mic, he was gold.
Yes.
Tosca would go to Canada, beat Johnny Theriault in Canada, which is freaking one of the biggest accomplishments of any Aussie kickboxer, but not be able to hold an interview.
Yeah, yeah.
Not be cover-worthy material for a magazine. You wouldn't be able to sit down with Tosca and do this style of interview. With Stan, you'd have to tell him to shut up because you could go for 5-6 hours and it'd be gold.
Yeah.
It's the difference. So I'm taking nothing away from Tosca's fighting style because he was amazing, but it just shows you a difference in a storyteller
Yep.
versus a guy who wasn't a storyteller.
Yes, yes. And do you think that by and large that there is perhaps this, I guess, tendency for fighters to sometimes lean too much into that storytelling aspect and then you lose what they originally set out to do?
It comes back to what you said before about being organic or not.
Yes.
For some guys, it's not natural.
Right, right.
And it feels forced,
yeah.
right? And when it feels forced, people aren't dumb. They can read it straight away. With someone like Conor, it's not forced. That's him. That's his natural effervescence, his personality. He plays the heel really well. Ronda Rousey was the same. Wasn't forced with Ronda Rousey. There's a lot of fighters where it's not forced. But there are some that are told you need to get a personality. You need to up your game. You need to start smack talking.
Yes.
And it doesn't suit them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, it's up to the manager or the PR agent of the fighter. And every fighter if they're going to climb to those levels, they need other people. You can't do it by yourself. And I'm sorry, but a trainer can't do it for you. You know, this is where a lot of local fighters run into a problem. Their trainer is also their manager, is also their PR person, is also their booking agent. It's like, guys, you can't do it. You know, you've got to have a group of people around you to get to those upper echelons. And it's for those people to say, well, talking on a mic isn't your strength, but you can do enough on a microphone to at least call your shot, make your prediction. So I'm going to knock this guy out in 2. You know, you don't have to. Sonny Liston, one of the most dangerous boxers in history, one of the most feared heavyweights in history, couldn't work a microphone for a lick. Right? He was no Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least he could say, with a growl and a snarl, I'm going to knock him out.
Yeah, yeah. And that's all
he needed, because
Exactly.
he growled and he snarled and he did it.
Exactly.
Right? Muhammad Ali was the polar opposite. He needed to talk the talk, talk the smack, all that sort of stuff. Somebody has something to offer. It's just a matter of finding what it is.
Absolutely. And I think that just going back to sort of that element of storytelling that sucks people in, at Fight Fit, as we were talking about before, we have this Fight Fit challenge, right? That's happening June 14th. And a large part of the attraction that people have to either join or just to come watch is because you've got members from the gym who are joining up just for the sake of getting fit. You know, they might work, you know, jobs in labor or whatever, or accountants or whatever, but they are pushing themselves and coming through this sort of self-overcoming journey within 6 weeks and jumping in a ring and having a full-on fight.
Amazing.
You can't help but get invested in that.
Of
I mean,
course.
I've been to so many of them and you don't even know the person, but you see on the board there, it has their occupation, how old they are, and a bit about them.
And a promotion like that relies on storytelling.
That's it.
Because you want to be emotionally engaged.
Exactly.
I want to cheer for this guy because he's a labourer, he's a brickie, he's a plumber, he's working from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. at night, plunging people's toilets.
That's right.
You know, scooping through shit. But here he is getting in the ring.
Exactly.
Giving it a go.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
It gets you G'd up.
It gets you G'd up. Like on Hex a couple of years ago when Brendan Favola fought that tradie.
Yeah.
You know, it was a stupid fight, but everyone got into it. The whole of Melbourne got into it. And they packed out Festival Hall, and I hadn't been there in years. And it was fun to commentate because Feb gave it a go, but he's fighting this tradie Tony, whatever his name was, and that was the storyline. This guy off the street comes and fights this football radio star, you know, in the cage. I mean, how cool is that? It's crazy. It's all about storytelling. You go through any fighter, you go through any promotion that is successful and they've always relied on stories. And the thing is, Nikita, is some fighters get it and some don't.
No.
For example, last night I hosted the Hex press conference for their upcoming event. I get the guys that are going to be in the press conference before, I take them aside and I say, listen guys, cameras, Instagram, social media clips. You've got to play it up a bit. When I ask you for a prediction on your fight, I don't care if you're one of those guys go, oh, I don't do predictions. I just hope it's a good fight.
Beside the point.
I don't care. Beside the point. I want a prediction.
Yeah.
Oh, and a couple of them like, oh, no, I don't do this. Not my character. I don't care.
Yeah.
I want a prediction. I'm going to keep asking you, and I'm sorry, I'll embarrass you on stage unless you give me a prediction.
Yeah.
Because I need that for social, and that's how you're going to push a fight.
That's right.
I go, I don't care if it's a crazy ass prediction.
Yeah.
I don't care if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Just give it.
This is the world
You
we're
as a
in now.
fighter, I'm sorry. You as a fighter must feel you know how you're manifesting how you think the fight's going to end.
That's right.
No fighter, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick Cara, no fighter's going to go into training thinking, yeah, I think I'm just going to decision this guy, split decision this guy over the distance. Everyone trains thinking I'm going to knock this guy out with my high kick, with my elbows, right?
Yeah.
You've got something, get it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I said, it's not personal. If you want to get stuck into the other guy, it's not personal. I expect you afterwards to shake his hand and say, good luck tomorrow.
Yeah.
And after the fight, I expect you to go out and have a beer with him.
Yeah.
In K1, that was the deal, Nikita.
Yeah.
In
Sam's
K1,
talked about that before,
right?
Greco, yeah.
You go in the lobby of the hotel before the fights. You have Peter Ertz with Mike Bernardo, with Jerome Labana, with Ray Sefo, drinking coffee, playing card games in the foyer of the hotel. Then they go in the ring, beat the crap out of each other, beat the bejesus out of each other.
Yeah.
And then later on, they're partying together in Roppongi. That's just how it was.
Exactly.
They got it, that what they said to build the fight up wasn't personal.
Yes, yeah.
Another example, 2009, I'm hosting the K1 press conference, and it's all about Alistair Overeem as the mixed martial arts invader, invading K1 and finding someone to defend K1's honor. And for me, that guy was Bada Hari.
Yes, yeah.
Grabbing Bada before the press conference, because Bada and I were good mates.
Yes.
Taking him out back and go, I need something special from you here. It's worldwide pay-per-view on American television live. We need something special. He goes, Schiavello, what do you want? I'm like, you're going to knock out Alistair, right? He goes, yeah, I'm going to knock him out. I go, how quickly you think you'll knock him out? He goes, I don't know. I go, I'll knock him out in 3. I go, can you say you'll knock him out in 2 minutes? And he looked at Mike Passinier, his trainer, and Mike's like, Schiavello, I don't know if we can say that. I'm like, man, it'd really help if you can do it.
Yeah.
Bada goes, all right, you'll set me up for it. I go, trust me, I'll set you up. I'll handball it to you. You just come and say you'll knock him out in 2 minutes. Go to the press conference. Alistair says his thing. Bada gets up there, pauses. I've set him up for it. He looks around, takes a moment. I think, oh, come on, go through with it. And he goes, I promise that if I fight Alistair Overeem in the semi-final tomorrow, I will knock him out inside of 2 minutes. Place goes bananas. You've never heard a K1 press conference go nuts like this.
Yeah.
The thing went viral. We played it on TV, everywhere.
Yeah.
Then the next day, he fights Alistair. He knocks him out in 2 minutes.
Well, there you go.
Right?
Yeah. Manifestation again.
And I say to my producer, Sasaki-san, I say, Sasaki, if Bada knocks out Alistair in 2 minutes, if he actually does it, turn the camera on me and Ray Sefo and Mike Kogan ringside.
Yes.
And I tell Ray and Mike Kogan, we're going to high five. It's unheard of for commentators to do it and show that bias,
Right.
but it's part of the story. We're going to high five because K1's honor being defended.
Yeah.
He knocks him out. We're going nuts in the commentary. Camera comes on us. We're high-fiving each other. It just made for great TV.
Right.
Bada got it.
Yeah.
The next day at breakfast, I'm sitting there in the hotel lobby in Japan having breakfast. Alistair's there. And I've never really met Alistair. We're mates now, but I never really met him. He stands up. He comes over to my table. And Alistair back then was freaking monster, man.
Monster now too, but yeah.
Puts his hands on my table. He goes, you're the commentator. I'm like, oh, shit, this guy's going to freaking beat me up.
Yeah.
Sticks his hand out, shakes my hand, and he goes, well done. He goes, awesome job. Fantastic. I'm like,
Yeah.
he goes, the way you did that, he goes, you made me the bad guy and Bada the good guy.
Yeah.
He goes, and the way you told that story, awesome.
Yeah.
Can't wait for you to commentate more. I'm like,
Spectacular.
he gets it.
Yeah.
It wasn't personal.
Yeah.
It's, Godfather quote, not personal, Sonny, it's strictly business.
Yes.
That's what it was.
Yes,
So some fighters don't get it and they need to get it. It's not personal, it's business. You got to
is.
sell it.
And would you say K1 was the zenith of
100%.
that type
Oh, it
of
was the peak.
operation? Yeah.
We would sit down before a K1 show with the director and the producer, and we'd have all the pages of information on every fighter, and they would never talk stats. They go, let me tell you this. Never. Let me tell you the story of Jerome Labana versus Peter Ertz. This is the story. And they go through a whole storyline. It was almost like scripting it
Yes.
and hoping for a certain result so the storyline would play out.
It's very WWE.
Until someone like Mark Hunt comes along in 2001 and fucks it up altogether.
Yeah,
You know, it's like someone forgot to show Mark Hunt the script. You weren't meant to win that thing, dude.
Yeah.
Jerome LeBanner was meant to win that thing.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to pivot the storyline. But it was all about storyline. It was never about stats.
That's
Never
spectacular.
ever. Yeah, all
Spectacular.
story.
And correct me if I'm wrong again, you moved over to, or you started working with Japan more consistently in 2000. Was it around 2000, 2001?
2001 I started. So I was working on a radio station here in Melbourne, and I got a phone call from Dixon McIver, who was the K1 promoter in New Zealand.
Yep.
And he said, my commentator to commentate this weekend in Fukuoka is ill. Neil Walker, very famous sports commentator in New Zealand.
Yes.
Can he jump on a plane tomorrow and come to Japan? I'm like, to commentate K1, I was 25 years old.
Yeah.
Dream come true. Because I'd been sending Master Ishii videos for years of a K1 address I had over a magazine. God knows they ever got to him.
Yeah.
Probably not. And I'm like, are you kidding? Hopped on a plane the next day, flew to Fukuoka, and there I am. I get to commentate what is considered the greatest K1 slugfest of all time. It was Ray Sefo, Mark Hunt,
Wow.
that fight.
Yes, yeah.
And the Marine Messe, 14,000 people there. Mark and Ray fight. Ray wins the fight, goes backstage. He's got triple vision. So they go backstage to Mark, who's already halfway through his bento box. Gloves are off. They say, re-glove, you get another shot against Adam Watt in the final. You beat Adam Watt, you're through to the Tokyo Dome. He comes out, knocks out Adam Watt in a round or 2 rounds. Mark Hunt books his ticket.
Wow.
History's made.
Wow.
Started my relationship with K1.
Yeah.
It was being back live on pay-per-view to New Zealand on Sky. The New Zealanders love it.
Yes.
Dixon says, bro, I want you to commentate all the K1 shows from now on. Sorry, Neil Walker, but
Yeah.
I got the gig.
Yep.
Started commentating there for New Zealand TV. And then a few years later, K1, like their regular English commentator, I think he passed away.
Okay. Okay.
And this is a funny story because they ring Ray Sefo and they go, we need another English commentator. And Sefo's like, oh, you got to get my mate Mike Schiavello. And they're thinking, oh, okay, yeah, we know this guy. They called the wrong Mike. They called Mike Angove, right, who's like my co-commentator, but he's not a play-by-play guy. He's a Kiwi. Yeah. So Mike Angove goes over to Japan, calls a show doing my job, rings me later, goes, oh, K1 paid me all this money. I'm like, how the hell did he get that job? They didn't ring me. And then Ray rings me, he's like, bro, I'm so sorry. He goes, I told them to ring brother Mike. They rang Mike Angove and not you. Next show, K1 rings me and goes, it was Sony Corporation with the contract back then, rang me, said, can you be the K1 commentator? Okay. And I'm like, yep. And
you guys have different styles as well, like in terms of your commentating?
Mike Angove, yeah. he was like the analyst. He was like the color, and I was a play-by-play, so he wasn't even in his comfort zone of doing it. Okay. Mike and I are great together. When I'm play-by-play and he's analyst, yeah. We do all the K1 New Zealand shows, we do some of the K1 Japan stuff, but him as a play-by-play, no. But that's how I kicked off my K1 career, and then I was going to Japan like 12 times a year doing K1 and K1 Max, and then Dynamite on New Year's Eve and all that stuff.
And you've done K1, I mean, just sort of a short summary of your accolades. You've done K1, and then in 2008, it's the Commonwealth Games, I believe, or
2006 Commonwealth Games, yes. 2008 Beijing Olympics. Yeah.
Yes. And then from there, you signed with AXS.
Correct, with HDNet, which later became Access TV, which was Mark Cuban's network in the States.
You know Mark Cuban?
Yeah.
How was he?
Mark was great. You know, I got the call in, they'd started broadcasting K1 on HDNet, Access TV in 2008. And then in 2009, I'm on my way to Jamaica to commentate a Muay Thai show in Jamaica. Champion of Champions, I think it was called. And I'm at LAX and I get a phone call from Andrew Simon, who was the CEO of Access TV. And he goes, man, we've heard your commentary. He goes, Mark, personally heard your commentary at 4 a.m. of the K1 Grand Prix, and you said something about Semi Schultz that made him laugh and fall off his chair. He goes, I got a phone call from Mark that morning saying, sign this crazy Aussie. Yes. We want to offer you a contract. And he goes, this contract can help you make a household name of you in the States in mixed martial arts. Right. I'm like, send me the contract. I got to Jamaica a couple of hours later. On my email was a contract from Access TV. I read it, sent it to my lawyer. He goes, yeah, it's all good. Signed it, sent it off. I was off and running with Access. I was flying back and forth from here to the States every 10 days. It became too much. So I said to Access, I need to relocate. And they said, fine, we'll house you over here, wherever you want to live, whatever city you choose, and we got you. The only person I knew in the States was Ray Sefo. He was in Vegas. So I said to Access, I'll move to Vegas. And they're like, cool, let's find you an apartment in Vegas, put you up, and based myself over there for 6.5 years.
And that eventually developed into the Voice Versus, I believe, right?
Yeah. So Joe Rogan and I became good friends. Yes. Joe had always been a fan of my commentary. Yep. He'd always go on interviews and people say, who's your favorite commentator? He'd say, Schiavello. We'd never met. He still does. I'd always say my favorite commentator is Rogan. We'd never met. I was in Edmonton one night commentating MFC, and Rogan was doing a comedy show at the same venue, at the River Creek Casino and Hotel. And the promoter of MFC said, hey, you've already spoken about Joe. Joe's spoken about you. Let's get together for dinner. Great. Met Joe. We hit it off, got on like a house on fire. And so when he came to Australia for UFC in 2010, because Access could never get an interview with him. And I rang him, I said, Joe, can I do an interview with you? You're in Sydney. You're in my backyard. He goes, yeah, for sure. So I rang Cuban and I said, listen, I can get Joe Rogan, but I don't want to do they wanted a 3-minute interview for Inside MMA. I said, forget that. Let me do like a 1-hour interview. They go, really? Rogan will do that with you? I go, yeah, he'll do it. They go, can you organize a camera crew? I go, I'll organize a camera crew and everything. Did the whole 1-hour show, sent it to them. They said, we love it. I said, there's a thread on Sherdog forums called The Voice versus Joe Rogan, arguing who's the better commentator. I go, why don't we have this as the show? The Voice versus Joe Rogan, call it that. They loved it. They cut it up into a 1-hour show, put it on the TV. It went bananas. And then I said, what are you guys thinking? I'll do another part with Joe Rogan. I'll do a part 2 because Joe said he'd love to do a part 2. They go, no, let's do this as a series. Explore other people first. We'll get back to Joe in a few years. I'm like, so I've got carte blanche to go after whoever. They go, whoever. If it's a big enough name, we'll do it. It was off and running.
And I'm sorry, but it does seem like I'm just reading up on who you've interviewed and met over the years. Everyone bar the Pope, unless you have interviewed.
No, not the Pope. But the new one speaks English, so there's a chance.
Hulk Hogan, on Steve Austin, Sugar Ray Leonard, Joe Rogan. I mean, obviously all the K1 fighters.
Yeah.
You've got everyone on sort of your list. Surely now you look back and you're like, there is not really a stone that you've left unturned at this point of your career.
No, I got everyone that I pretty much wanted to get. Besides Mike Tyson, only reason that because Tyson's the only one that ever asked for money, and it was quite a bit of money back then. You know, so he was the only one we tried that wanted money. They were all great episodes. Yeah, Steven Seagal was that legendary one that always pops up still on YouTube. Any Seagal video you look at, my interview is always on there.
Just meeting him as a personality.
Look, I'll tell you some funny stuff about Steven, is that Steven's one of those guys that I knew he would try and test my martial arts knowledge before I interviewed him. Steven had never done a TV interview in his life that went more than 8 minutes. And here I am trying to get him for 2 years, for a 1-hour TV show.
Yes.
And I remember emailing back and forth with him and his so-called personal assistant. I really think it was him. Ray Sefo put me onto Steven, gave me his number, gave me his email. And I still have the email saved somewhere where I said to Steven, I basically said, piss off, I'm sick of this. I now pull the interview from you. As soon as I did that, he's like, oh, no, we can make it happen. Eventually he made it happen, but I knew he was going to try and test me. So the night before our interview, he rings me and he's asking me all these questions about Aikido. All my years of Blitz magazine, writing about every martial art, I knew the ins and outs of Aikido. So I'm dropping names, I'm talking about the founder of Aikido, I'm talking about this and that. And he's like, whoa, this guy knows his stuff. We got on like a house on fire, on the phone for an hour and a half. So next day, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the Phoenician Resort, I think it was called, in Penthouse Suite. Big camera crew all set up. As you know, it takes a crew 2-3 hours to set up. Steven rings, says he's going to be 2 hours late. So, all right, we wait. 2 hours late. God knows why. Eventually, he rocks up. Funny story here. Steven rocks up in this SUV, tinted windows, gets out of the SUV. I take him up, and the driver tells me, while Steven's getting ready, he goes, that SUV can survive a rocket-propelled grenade attack. The chassis is so strong. He goes, in the event of a chemical attack on Steven, he can be hermetically sealed inside the vehicle. I'm like, who's going to do a chemical attack on Steven Seagal, man? She goes to do makeup for the show, and the makeup artist is a Jamaican woman, but she doesn't have a Jamaican accent. But she makes the mistake of telling Steven she's Jamaican because she was black, you know. Steven goes into a Jamaican accent for like an hour talking to her. Hey, ma'am, can you give me a little bit more here, ma'am? Can you do my hair like this? And she's like, Rastafarian. Rastafarian, right? That's the word. And she's like, what the fuck? Anyway, we sit down to do the interview and we're across from each other like this. And like your sound guy, Shav, did, my sound guy puts the mic on, lapel mic. He goes and puts it on. He's like, okay. He comes over to me and he goes, Guy, you'll never guess what Seagal's wearing under his jacket. I go, I can see, man, a black shirt. He goes, no, under that. I go, what? He goes, he's got a bulletproof vest on. I'm like, it's 50 degrees outside, 115 in Arizona. He's wearing a bulletproof vest underneath. Then in shot here, there's a bum bag, a fanny pack, a bum bag in shot. So my EP goes out over there, picks up the bum bag to move out of shot, and Steven's like, sir, be very, very careful. If you drop that bag, there's many dangerous things in there that could kill us all. So my EP carries this bag out of shot like he's carrying this idol out of Indiana Jones, places it down, comes over to me and he goes, Mikey, you won't believe what's in the bum bag. I go, what? He goes, guns. I go, guns, plural. He goes, I think he's got like 6 handguns in there. Holy shit, man. We're doing the interview with Stephen, and we've got 3 cameras, one over my shoulder, one over his shoulder, and a dolly running on a track, right? The whole interview, Stephen keeps looking into the darkness where there's no cameras, there's no one there. And he keeps looking like he's expecting someone to pop out of nowhere. And he's looking around like the NSA are listening in the air vents or something. It was just weird. He's super paranoid. But we got on like a house on fire. He got a big hug afterwards, signed autographs, stuck around and chatted, rang me the next day. He's like, that's the most amazing interview. No one's ever interviewed me like that. It ran for about 90 minutes and we stripped it down to 52 for TV for a 1-hour show. He loved it. But then the interview comes out, right? And mind you, Stephen's the only person that ever asked for final cut on the interview. Final cut means our lawyers give him a contract that says he can take the footage of the interview and cut out whatever he wants. He chose not to enact it. The interview plays on TV, and there's that very famous part where I ask him, if you're in a street fight in a dark alley, which Hollywood celebrity would you want by your side? And he looks at me and he doesn't answer. And I try to push, I go, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he goes, can I laugh in your face? And I'm like, Dolph Lundgren, can I laugh in your face? Michael Jai White, I say. He goes, can I laugh in your face? Michael Jai White, the most legit martial artist in Hollywood. We'll kick everyone's ass. We'll kick Nick Carra's ass. Sorry, Nick, right? And here's Seagal laughing at all of them, saying, can I laugh? And that goes viral. Seagal cracks the shits over that and claims I put words in his mouth. He tells this to other people and he's going out there bagging me out. And Michael Jai White tells me this because Michael Jai and I are close mates. And he's like, Stephen's bagging you out, calling you this, calling you that, saying you put words in his mouth. And I'm like, how can I possibly put words in the guy's mouth? And then in Bangkok, Michael Jai confronts Stephen in a hotel lobby and says to Stephen, why'd you say that shit about me on Schiavello's show? And Stephen's like, well, Schiavello's a little liar and put words in my mouth. And Michael Jai's like, no, he didn't. Schiavello's interviewed me and he's a great interview. You said that stuff, put it on him, and Stephen backed right off. So for years, there'd been this friction between me and Stephen. And then we met up in Dubai last year. He was there at a show. And I said to my mate who brought him out, I go, can I sit with Stephen for half an hour? Because he was meeting Alex Pereira.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And let me fucking sort it out with Stephen. We sorted it out. I said, mate, you've been bagging me out all these years. He's like, no, I haven't. I go, Michael Jai White told me you had, calling me these names. And we hashed it out. We figured it out. We shook hands, gave a hug to each other, but it was weird, man.
Was it a matter of miscommunication, or was it just that he just had a bit of a moment, a switch? Interesting.
Don't know.
Yeah, well, it's Steven Seagal. But
Don't know. He tried to throw Michael Jai under the bus. You know, I'm like, Michael Jai's my man, you know?
Exactly.
So, it's weird.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just interesting to hear how these people sort of are in real life, you know? They always say never meet your heroes, right? Because you never know what to expect.
It's hard, man. I was like that when I met Hulk Hogan. I grew up like a big wrestling fan, meet Hulk Hogan at his house in Florida.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, please let him be a good guy.
Yeah.
You know, please let him be a good guy. He's a great guy. Fantastic. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin, like the best guy ever. We still stay in touch. We're still mates, still text each other, call each other all the time.
Yeah.
Great guy, you know? So you pray like, please be a good bloke. And 99.9% of the time they are.
They are.
Yeah.
Just to wrap this up, Michael, thank you again for your time. I have sort of 3 questions that are a little bit more introspective, just to get your opinion on some things.
Sure.
What would you say now? Because I know that we didn't really touch on this throughout the interview, but I know that you have an interest in sort of esoteric symbolism and world philosophy and whatnot. If you were to say there were archetypes, the reality of archetypes, what would you say are your guiding archetypes in your life right now, at this point in your life? Guiding symbols even.
You mean as a physical symbol?
Can be a physical symbol, yeah, just anything that sort of represents where you are right now in your life, or sort of represents your life as a whole.
I don't. Physical symbols are difficult because there's so many interpretations. I think my archetypes are more people that I've come across,
Yes.
and none of them are celebrities. They're all people personally that have affected me that now almost influence heavily the way I lead my life. One was my grandfather, so my mother's father, who passed away years ago, but was the sweetest, most genuine, hardworking human being who never said a bad word about anyone and lived a fantastic life. And I like to try and act like he acts. Another one was my wife's great fourth or fifth cousin who lived in San Francisco, and she passed away at 93 years old. And still up to the day she passed away, she was a chain smoker who refused to stop smoking because she just enjoyed it. And she'd go to steak dinners every night and drink scotch every night and get up in the morning and do crossword puzzles to stay mentally sharp. And she'd go out with lunch with her friends 3 times a week. And I'm like, that is a type of person I want to aspire to be like as well, because she was 93 years old, razor sharp mentally, still out and about. So it's people like that. And then I look at my own children and I see how they see the world through an 11-year-old's eyes and an 8-year-old's eyes. And I'm like, I want to not forget the world looks like that. Because when we grow up and we get older, we think the world can be a very bad place, and it can be, but there's also a beauty and an innocence in so much. I took my son, my 11-year-old, to Tokyo 2 weeks ago. He came with me, his first time in Tokyo. And to see Tokyo, a city I've been to 70, 80 times through his eyes, I don't want to forget that. That sometimes you've got to look through their eyes, get on their level and see the beauty in the world. And when you do that, then you resonate that. You resonate that frequency, that vibration, you align with the world a lot better, and good things come to you.
That's beautiful. And I think just for the last question, I could condense the last 2 into one. You're 99 years old, you're on your deathbed, you're with your loved ones. What would you want your legacy to be? And what would you want them to see in you?
I think my number one legacy is just being a good dad. Honestly, being a good dad, I think it's the most important thing to me. Being a good dad, good husband who provided, who loved. Professional legacy, it's always going to be there. You know, I've already got that locked in. If I drop dead right now on the spot, I know what people are going to say about me professionally and my professional achievements. But the people that are most important to me, my sons, my wife, what will they remember about their husband, their dad? And so for me, that's the legacy. It's like, he was a good husband, he was a great father, rest in peace, did what he came here to do.
Yeah. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mr.
Nikita.
Schiavello.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.